Hi, I'm Eric Siegel, and welcome to episode 63 of Eric's Trains. Alright, it is early September 2017, and it's been quite a while since my last video. You know, a lot of people always ask me, hey, when's the next video coming out? And my answer is always the same. The next video will come out when I have something to talk about. And so far this year, there hasn't been a whole lot of stuff to talk about because 2017 has kind of been a weird, slow year for the layout for a variety of reasons. First of all, I had some personal issues that happened earlier this year that I had to work out. Those have been taken care of, but it did take up a lot of time. At one point, I thought I was going to have to move and take down the layout and build a new layout, but that is not going to happen now. I'm going to keep the house and I'm keeping the layout, so that's good news. And then also, I've been very busy watching a lot of baseball. My son plays high school baseball, and he's in the middle of trying to get a scholarship to play college baseball, and so that's taking up a lot of time. It's a lot of fun to watch, but it doesn't leave a lot of time for the trains. But things are starting to get moving now. I'm starting to do some work on the layout, so I do have a few new things on the layout to show you in just a few minutes. But first of all, I want to talk about the upcoming open house. I am going to be having an open house this year. This year's open house will be on Saturday, October 14th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. It is free of charge. You don't have to RSVP or anything. All you have to do is show up. And as usual, the open house is part of a larger tour of Atlanta and North Georgia area train layouts called the Piedmont Pilgrimage, that is organized every year by the local NMRA chapter. So for more information on the Piedmont Pilgrimage, as well as getting directions to my open house and more information like that, check out the Piedmont Pilgrimage website at www.piedmontpilgrimage.com. Okay, so now that we've got the open house taken care of, let me show you some of the progress on the layout. One new addition here in the main room is back behind the turntable, and it's that light tower. That is a Lionel light tower. It's the single tower. There's a double tower on the market as well. Now, this is the new version of the light tower that has the LED lighting, and I weathered this one to make it look a little more realistic and make it fit into the layout a little bit better. But overall, I think it looks pretty good. I've still got a little bit of scenery work to do down at the bottom, but the installation is pretty much complete at this point, and it is functional. And as you can see, when the lights are off, it puts out a good bit of light. I think it looks great. Another brand new lighting addition, actually done within the last couple days, is right back there behind the tower. I added a couple of new Lionel yard lights. The only other new thing on the layout in the main room here is a minor item, and it's this switch back here. That's a new switch. There used to be an Atlas 072 switch right there, but I accidentally broke it because I was working on the layout back there, and I put my hand on the switch and put too much weight on it, and it broke one of the rails. So I had to replace it, and so I decided to replace it with a Ross 072 switch. Now, of course, anytime I do something like that, people start asking, well, hey, what's wrong with the Atlas switches? There's nothing wrong with them. They're perfectly fine. I think the Atlas switches are probably just as good as the Ross switches. It's just that recently, I've been using the Ross switches just because I felt like it. They're made in the USA, which is a nice thing. And just for whatever reason, I have felt like using the Ross switches lately, so whenever I've had to add a new switch or replace an old or broken switch, I've replaced them with Ross switches. But in reality, the Atlas switches are just fine. It's just a matter of preference and which one you feel like using at the particular time that you're installing it. Here in the hallway room, there hasn't been a whole lot of progress except in one area, and it's right on top of this mountain. I installed this microwave tower. This is a Lionel microwave tower that I've actually had since I was a kid. Now, they don't look like this out of the box. They are much more toy-like in appearance, but I repainted this and weathered it a bit to make it fit into the layout a little better, and I think I did a pretty good job. It looks good. Even though it's not a scale model, I think it actually fits in very well. I built up a little base along the bottom with some ballast and some wood. And yeah, I think it looks good. You can see the installation's complete. The light is on up there. But, you know, like most areas on a layout, it's not 100% complete. It never is. Because at some point I will come back through here and add some more trees and so forth just to fill out this area. But for now, I think it looks pretty good. I'm walking into the Carolina room now, And this room has actually been where most of the work has taken place recently. However, none of that work has been on the actual layout above. It's all been below. So let me go ahead and pull back these skirts to show you what I've been working on. So the skirts are up, and this is what I've been working on for the last few weeks, getting this area of the layout organized underneath. This area was really one of the last junk pile areas of the layout. You know, I think every basement or attic or garage usually has some sort of junk pile area, and that's what this corner and this area really was. There was all sorts of scrap wood and various other items that I really wasn't using, and it was a big mess. And so I wanted to reorganize it primarily to get some more storage space out of it. So a couple weeks ago I pulled everything out very carefully because I wasn't sure what critters might be in there in terms of roaches and spiders and whatnot. And sure enough, I pulled out a couple dozen roach carcasses. Now, to my exterminator's credit, they were all dead, but they were still gross, and there were some spiders in there as well. But I got it all out, and I swept it, I vacuumed it, and then I came in with some lumber and added some more shelving to get some more storage space. I added some LED rope lighting so that, like the other parts of the layout, there's now lighting on the underside so I can see what's going on. And I think it looks really good. I put a lot of stuff in storage bins like light bulbs and spare electronics and stuff like that. There's some supplies there for working on the layout, and I also got some storage space for train boxes that I didn't have over here before, which helped to relieve some congestion on other parts of the layout where I was storing too much stuff. So that worked out really well. So I'm very, very happy with this. And the work didn't stop here. It also extended into the furnace room over here. This is a part of the layout that people usually don't see. It's usually blocked off by a curtain, but I've got it opened up right now while I work on it. There's a tunnel that connects the Carolina room to the main room, but that's about it as far as trains goes. And so what I did over the last couple weeks is I added all these shelves. So I'm really happy about that. I added another storage shelf up here, so there's lots more storage in here. I also cleaned out underneath here because it was a big mess. So it's looking really good, and it's given me a lot more storage. I've got all my little charger batteries here, and some of the storage space I don't even have use for yet, but I will soon. Really cool. Now, all these transformers here, by the way, those will be featured in an upcoming video that I've been working on for quite a while, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, it's looking really good. You know, not all of the excitement on a layout happens above ground. Sometimes it's the stuff you do behind the scenes that can be really rewarding, and that's the case here. You know, there's a tendency with layouts to kind of neglect the underside because people don't see it, and so sometimes it kind of becomes very, very messy and sort of a maze of junk. And so it feels really good when you can get it organized so that you know where everything is and you can maximize the storage potential. And that's what's happened here. So again, very, very happy with this. And this reorganization has also extended past the layout room into my garage, but I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Up next, I want to show you some new train display shelves that I've added lately. Right here, I'm in the hallway room right now, and previously there was just one shelf here with these genset switchers on it. But I figured I might be able to squeeze one more shelf above it, and I had this spare piece of Glenn Snyder aluminum shelving lying around. And so using that, I was able to just barely squeeze in one more shelf. The clearance up top is not enough to fit a full O-scale train, but it is enough to fit something smaller. So I moved the Lionel Lincoln funeral train in here, and it fits just fine. So I was able to squeeze one more shelf out of this area. Here in the main room, I've got a new display case right here that I built a couple weeks ago. Now, I still need to add the plexiglass door on the front of it, like I've got on these display cases over here. As I've said before, for my display cases that are close to the floor, I like to put plexiglass on the front because when I have my open house and there are small kids here, I don't want them to be tempted to reach out and touch and potentially damage an expensive engine, because that would prompt me to have an awkward conversation with their parents that I don't want to have. So to avoid all that, I just put plexiglass on the front. So this case will have a plexiglass door by the time the open house rolls around. Now, this display case is located in really one of the last semi-normal spaces down here as far as wall storage goes. Any more storage down here in the basement is probably going to have to be integrated into the bottom of the layout. And I'll talk more about that if and when it happens. But as far as wall-based storage goes, I've really run out of all the practical spaces. And the spaces that are left are going to require me to be a little more creative. And that's what I've done up here. I added a new display case up here in the stairwell right there. And you can see it's angled to go up the stairs to make use of all that space. And I think it looks pretty good. You can see I've already started stocking the shelves with some trains, and it'll get filled up before too long. Now, I'm not a carpenter, so it did take me a while to get the hang of doing angled cuts to make it all work out right, but it worked, and I think it looks pretty good. Like the display case you just saw a minute ago, I'm also going to add a plexiglass door here as well. And that's going to be fun when I go to the glass company and ask them to make me a plexiglass door that's in this particular shape. They should do it, it's just going to be a little bit of a challenge, I think. But yeah, it looks pretty good. And this is really one of the last spaces I can put as far as wall storage goes. The only other place I've got down here is up here, further up the stairs on this wall. I might be able to squeeze a little more storage out of this space. Any more storage is going to require, like I said, putting some storage into the bottom part of the layout, putting some display cases that are built into the bottom part of the layout, or I can store some trains upstairs, and I'm already starting to do that, so let me show you that right now. Alright, I'm upstairs in my office now, which is a spot that I typically don't show in these videos. There's my computer where I'll be editing this video as soon as I'm done shooting it. But I've got some trains on display up here, and prior to about a day ago, the only trains on display here in my office were tin plate trains, mostly standard gauge, as you can see. These are all reproductions, of course, made by MTH, most of them under the Lionel Corporate tin plate banner. But yeah, they look really nice. I love having them on display up here in the office because they're so beautiful. I've got a shelf of some O-gauge tin plate over there. Yeah, I've had these here for a while, but in the last 24 hours, I added some more shelving down here for some O-scale passenger cars. And actually, in between the last scene and this scene was when the UPS guy showed up and dropped off these shelves. So I went ahead and installed them. So these are brand spanking new. Now, these are the same aluminum O-gauge shelves made by Glenn Snyder Display Systems that I have in the basement. And then up here, these are also made by Glenn Snyder. These are the standard gauge shelves. Actually, they're multi-gauge. You can put standard gauge, O-gauge, or G-gauge on them. But down here, the new shelves are just for O-gauge. And so I finally have a place to put some of my passenger cars. These are not all of my passenger cars. This barely scratches the surface, but it's a good start. And I put these shelves here just to store passenger cars because prior to this, I just sort of had to stick these cars under the layout until I needed them. And it wasn't the best place for them to be because they could collect dust and get damaged. And so now they're in a safe place where they actually look really good. And, you know, I like to keep my passenger cars out of the box if possible. It'd be easy to put them all in the boxes, but I like to keep them out because I like to use them, I like to run them, and so it's nice to have them at the ready. And so with this, I have them at the ready. I can run them whenever I want, but I've also got them on these shelves where they're safe and on display and they look beautiful. Now, it just so happened that the length of these shelves worked out perfectly. They're just under 10 feet in length, and that ended up being the perfect length for exactly 6 passenger cars per shelf. So I was really happy with the way that worked out. That was just random chance. I just made the shelves as long as I could make them and hope for the best. The other thing is that I've got some room to expand down below, so at some point in the future I will probably add some additional shelves. While I'm up here, I might as well introduce you to the new sort of unofficial mascot for Eric's Trains. You may have seen him in a previous video, but this is Chessie. Chessie is a Russian blue kitten. He's about 5 months old now. I got him when he was about 10 weeks old from a Russian blue breeder over in Alabama. And actually, for the first few weeks that I had Chessie, he was wearing a big old cast on his back left leg, because on the day that I went to pick him up from the breeder, when I was about halfway there, I got a panicked call saying that there had been an accident and he had broken one of his legs. And so I met the breeder at the vet, and they put a big cast on his back left leg, and he wore that cast for about 3 weeks. But as you can see, the cast is off and he is now feeling great. So here he is, and of course he does have a railroad name. He's named after Chessie the cat, who was the original mascot for the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad, which eventually became the Chessie system. And so just like the original Chessie the cat, he is sleeping like a kitten. And of course, because I now have a Chessie the cat, that means I'm going to have to get more Chessie system stuff for my layout. The last place I want to show you is here in my garage, where I'm in the process of building a real workshop. Believe it or not, I've never really had a legitimate workshop to do work in. I've always used the layout room as sort of a makeshift workshop, and I use the unfinished table in the Carolina room as a makeshift workbench. But that has to end because I want to finish up that table, so I'm moving everything up here, and this is going to be the new workshop. Previously, the only thing I really did up here in the garage was airbrush weathering. It's sort of a makeshift airbrush weathering stand right there. But now I'm turning this into a fully functional workshop. So to start things off, I built this workbench a couple weeks ago, and it's looking pretty good. It's not 100% complete. I still need to finish out the storage shelving on the bottom. I also want to put some shelving behind it and some lighting up above, but it is looking pretty good and it is functional right now. And then I'm going to build a second workbench over here where I'm in the process of clearing all this junk out. This workbench will be as long as this workbench, but not as deep. And this is going to be a train workbench with some test track and a power supply and so forth. And that will allow me to work on some trains up here. And then at some point down the road, I'd like to clear out this cove here and install a paint booth so that I can do my airbrush weathering in a more controlled environment. Of course, that will require me to install an exhaust fan for the paint booth, so that will have to come much later on down the road, but it will be cool to have that once it's in there. There's some carpeting down here. That's brand new. That is for the Carolina room down on the layout. The carpet that was in the Carolina room was really old and dirty. It had had lots of stuff spilled on it, and so I took it out and I went to Home Depot and I bought the cheapest carpet I could find. And so this is going to go in the Carolina room so that when the open house rolls around, it's nice and clean and fresh in there. But yeah, lots of work going on up here in the garage. I've got more work ahead of me than behind, so there's lots of stuff to do up here. But I have gotten off to a good start. I'm having a lot of fun clearing stuff out and building up this workshop in here. So there will be more progress on this in the future. Alright, so that does it as far as layout related progress goes. Like I said, 2017 has kind of been a slow year, but things have been picking up lately, and so by the time I do the next video, I should have some more progress to show you on the layout, including a new building or two. The last thing I want to do is just mention a few of the many product reviews that are coming in the future. Right now I'm working on a review for the MTH BL2 Diesel. After that I'll be doing an MTH GP38. I've got a couple MTH electrics in the queue. There's an EP5 and an AEM7. I've also got a Lionel K4 and a Lionel SD45 to review. And I'm going to try to do a sneak peek video for the new Lionel Brass Hybrid Mikado. That should be a lot of fun. So keep an eye out for those and many other reviews in the future. Anyway, that's about it for now. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time. While I'm up here, I might as well go ahead and introduce you to the new sort of mascot for Eric's Trains. This is Chessie. He is a Russian blue kitten, and he's getting up now and walking away. While I'm up here, I might as well introduce you to the new sort of unofficial mascot for Eric's Trains. You may have seen him in a previous video, but this is Chessie. Oh, big stretch.